Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar lashed out at a media outlet for their article on India and said that the report attempts to connect unrelated dots and distort facts. The report is titled How, and I quote, How India Tamed Twitter and Set a Global Standard for Online Censorship. Calling out the report, the minister said that it is a sad struggling effort to invent a story based on coffee table discussions relying on anonymous sources. Of course, viewers, this is the latest that we are tracking for all of you. Meanwhile, the tweet that Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar had in fact tweeted out is right on my screen. I will quickly take you through all that he has in fact written in this tweet. If I could just request my crew to quickly shift to my touchpad right here, and I can quickly tell our viewers what has been written in this tweet. I'm going to quickly start reading out. Yes, there you can see it. Here, Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar's Twitter account, he has tweeted it out. I'm going to quickly read what's written. I am always baffled by few journalists who claim to cover tech but are too lazy to read or learn, or are incompetent or misrepresent conversations, facts, working on a predetermined outcome or contain of the tree. At the rate Washington Post article titled How India Tamed Twitter and Set a Global Standard for Online Censorship is a shining example of this. This is, of course, all written by Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar. I'm going to continue reading what's written over here. This report attempts to connect unrelated dots, distort facts to create a senseless, sensational narrative of censorship, a sad, struggling effort to invent a story based on coffee table discussions, relying on the wonderful world of anonymous sources. It's tiresome to school journalists that produce this type of work, but here is how it goes. He's written a few points over here. I'm going to quickly read them out. They have difficulty in understanding the principles of openness, safety and trust and accountability established by India in creating a clear framework safeguarding digital Nagriks who used the internet. Next thing that he's written is they haven't researched or studied that such is obvious because IT rules and law is explicit that no intermediary platform can violate constitutional rights of any Indian citizen. The third thing that is written over here is they obviously haven't quite figured out yet that in India there are constitutional reasonable restrictions on free speech under Article 19(2). They haven't quite gotten head around the well-defined obligations under Section 69 and in IT Rules 3(1)(b) for intermediaries to adhere to and ensure safety and trust of users against a set of harms that range from CSAM to penalty false information to content that's violative of law, national security to illegal betting, etc., consistent with 19(2) reasonable restrictions. Reports by social media intermediaries of compliance against these harmful illegal content have improved, highlighting the progress in such Indian internet safe and trusted for all digital Nagriks. He's in fact written a lot more over here. I'm going to quickly read it out for all our viewers. As a constitutional democracy with an independent judiciary, no individual or corporation, even US big techs, is above the law of the land. No company is or will be given a free pass in India when it comes to complying with the law. Further, all those who are aggrieved by any action of government or anybody have the right to appeal to the courts. Of course, this has all been mentioned in a tweet by Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar. He's written a slew of points over here. I'm going to quickly read out the next point that he has in fact mentioned in this tweet. PM Narendra Modi ji's government regulations of internet has been transparent, rule-based and consistent for all users, all platforms, regardless of their place of origin. Of course, viewers, this is all been mentioned by Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar in his tweet. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast is my colleague Akshit Gupta. Akshit, over to you. Give our viewers an understanding on what Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar has written in this tweet. Well, there seems to be some internet connectivity issue on my colleague Akshit Gupta's end. Meanwhile, I'm being told that we're being joined by Mr. Sanjeev Srivastava. He's an international affairs expert. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining in on NewsX. Now, of course, the Washington Post has come out with this article. Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar has slammed them for this article. What do you make of this, sir?
Well, such articles must be slammed. I know India is the largest democracy on the planet, and we are a constitutional democracy. Obviously, every thing, whatever the rules and regulations are made, that is made under the various framework and guiding principles of our constitution. No country, no individual, no company, nobody in our nation is above law, and there are certainly some reasonable restrictions have been imposed under the under the guidance of our Article 9(2), and that certainly puts some restrictions on the unreasonable ways of expression, etc. And there are individuals, there could be some practices by several companies which cannot be justified in the name of freedom of expression. And whenever it comes to those restrictions putting on such expressions, that must be put. And that is nothing wrong in it. I think it is very much under our constitutional framework, and the constitutional guidelines are very well laid out under the Article 9(2). So I think this kind of articles, they have a very biased approach regarding India. Whenever something good happens in India, they do not report it much. They try to, undermine and underreport such, constructive, positive development. But when it comes to something which could be a point of some kind of, critique or something, then they try to highlight it in a much bigger way, saying that India is putting these kind of restrictions and taming Twitter and other platforms, etc. So those, reports are extremely false reports, and that must be slammed. And that's what precisely our Minister, Shri Chandrasekhar, has done. Sabri, one thing is quite certain, that when you talk about the freedom of expression and any kind of a freedom, that freedom is available for an individual or a company or anybody till the time you respect the other's freedom. If because of one practice or one person's practice or a company's practice or anybody's practice, the other's freedoms are being curtailed or harmed, then I think that must be restricted. And that is what precisely India has done. That's what precisely any democracy does. That it puts certain restrictions on the practices of freedom of expression, etc. For example, let me just give the example of Canada. Canadian Prime Minister also talks about freedom of expression, but he allows terrorists like various terrorists who are doing all sorts of anti activities to express themselves, and no action is taken. So can that be allowed? Can that be allowed to express yourself freely when you promote terrorism and extremism and all sorts of other?
So absolutely. But with this tweet that has now been released by Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar, do you think he's put publications like the Washington Post in their place?
Yes, I think it exposes them, and they have been exposing themselves quite frequently. Recently, there was one report in the Washington Post with regard to our solar panel and various activities regarding our activities related to harnessing solar energy. So that was also another biased report, which was written by a Delhi-based journalist working for Washington Post. So Washington Post has done some misreporting with regard to Indian affairs, and this is yet another example how biased these publications could be. But it will not make any impact on India's practices. India is well within its right, and India is very much right on this kind of action which we are taking with regard to putting restrictions on those kind of unwanted expressions. But yes, you are very right. Washington Post like publications, they must think many times before coming up with such publications, which will not harm India's image, but certainly it will put their credibility at stake.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.